I think a lot of people, when they're starting out in business, they don't appreciate it. I know I didn't appreciate that, like the ability to just throw spaghetti against the wall and see what happens. And so many people, especially what I see with people who are launching things for the first time, they might be launching their first course and they're like, oh, well, I want to wait until my audience is bigger so I can have a big launch. And it's like, well, actually, no, you don't want to be doing your first launch in front of a massive audience because there's so much more that can go wrong when you've got a big audience. It's kind of like learning how to drive on the freeway rather than in the little dead end road down the street, right? Or in a car park. Welcome to Imperfect Action. I'm Steph Taylor. For years, I read all the books, downloaded all the freebies, and did all the courses. But it wasn't until I started taking imperfect action that my business had its first $1 million year. Imperfect action is about doing things before you're ready, prioritizing consistent action over perfect action, and moving forward, even when you're not sure you're doing it right. On this show, you can expect mindset advice, actionable marketing tips, and strategies to build a business that brings you more profit, more freedom, and even more joy. Are you on the list to get my daily Biz Boosters? Every day, I'll send you a bite-sized prompt designed to help you grow your business in a more intentional way. Sign up at stephtaylor.co/DBB or at the link in the show notes. Welcome back. I'm so excited to be here with Anita. If you're listening on Anita's podcast, I'm Steph Taylor. Nice to meet you. Otherwise, if you're not familiar with Anita Siek, well, you should be. She's my biz bestie. She's a copywriter. She's a brand strategist, and she's just a genius at all things words and psychology. And today we're going to be chatting our biggest lessons from 2023, both business and personal. So yay, let's jump in. Do you have anything you want to say before we start rapid firing our lessons?
I'm excited to actually, hear your lessons, Steph. So what's been one of your, let's dive into both business, launch, and all the things. Like, what's been one thing?
Oh, the biggest one. And I think it's also the one that's kind of led into my biggest intention for 2024. But the biggest lesson for me has been the magic is in the things that I've been avoiding. There have been, in every area of my life, I'm constantly looking for the shiny pill, the quick fix, there's got to be an easy answer to this that's not the difficult thing that I'm avoiding doing. And sometimes it's honestly, the solution is just to do the thing that I don't want to do. And it's really easy to pretend that the thing doesn't exist and to put it off. And let me give you a really simple one. For me, I love outlining podcast episodes, but for some reason, I have so much resistance when it comes to hitting record. Once I'm talking, I love it. It's great. But there's so much resistance for me in actually hitting that record button and getting going with it. So I put them off and I put them off and I put them off. And then I leave them to the last minute, and it creates extra work for my team because now suddenly they've got to do it last minute. So for me, I could avoid so much extra stress for me. I could avoid so much extra stress for my team by just not avoiding doing the simple task. Instead of looking for all sorts of magic productivity hacks and ways to get more stuff done. So that's a big one for me.
I'm going to ask a curly one though. Why do you feel like you avoid the hitting? What are you afraid of?
Oh, it's the same reason most of us procrastinate stuff. It's because of the uncomfortable feeling associated with doing the thing, right? Like for me, it's now I have to be on. I have to talk into a microphone. I have to have the lights on. I have to not get it wrong. It's all of the discomfort involved with that even though I've done over 700 episodes, it doesn't really go away.
I love the fact that you shared that because I feel like, and that includes myself, I feel like so much of your audience, especially listening to this episode right now, but also myself included, you produce 2-3 episodes a week.
3.
You speak 3. Yep. 3 a week. And I think 2 is already a lot over at Wordfetti. But you speak and you produce these pieces of content with so much ease from our lens, from my lens, right? But it's like hearing the fact that sometimes it is hard to actually press record. Sometimes it is hard where you have to get into this zone or this mode. And you mentioned before that you've got to get it right. You're just I don't want to do it.
It's because I want to do a great job, right? I want it to be really
Totally.
good. So then I tell myself like, oh, I'll be in a better headspace to record tomorrow, or, I'll feel more ready to do it tomorrow. It's literally anything that you're procrastinating. When you're telling yourself that, it's because you want to do a good job.
100%. It's interesting how this also applies to personal life as well, and all the things I try to avoid.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's one of them. Magic is in the things that you are avoiding.
Yes. What's your first one?
Oh, my first big lesson of 2023. I'd probably say I've really felt like I learned a lot about myself in 2023, and that a big part of me and how I choose to make decisions, and this was a big one for me, was this narrative of I'm keeping doing something, or I'm doing something because I don't want to fail. And this was really big for me. So it's like, I will continue to pursue something because I don't want to fail. I will continue to, and optimism is beautiful. And I'm usually a pretty optimistic, positive person, but they say that winners also know how to quit certain things. But I'm this person who's just like, no, like we're always taught I was taught, if you're not getting the result that you want, like it's because you didn't try hard enough. Right. But that is almost like a double-edged sword, where sometimes we're pursuing the thing that we actually don't want, or we didn't even have that time to consider, is that actually what we want? So one of the biggest lessons for me is realizing, just, am I actually doing this because I really want to do it? Or is it because I'm doing this because I don't want to fail?
And I'm going to ask you a follow-up question on this. How are you going forward? How are you going to discern between the things that you genuinely don't want to do that aren't aligned versus the things that you maybe feel a bit of resistance towards because it's challenging, or I don't know, something needs to change first? So like, how are you going to tell the difference between a give up and a quit versus a pivot?
Yep. That's such a good question. I've actually been simmering on this quite a lot. One of my advisors and mentors asked me this question, and he was just like, with anything that you do in business or in life, it usually serves something for you. So for example, I know I absolutely love creating the container for my mastermind because I can actually feel like I'm creating life transformations. So that's what it serves for me. There's an internal knowing, an internal desire for me to want to continue pursuing that thing because it just meets that. But as soon as, with one area of my business, which I'll make an announcement soon and you already know, Steph, around a big pivot that I'm doing this year, when he asked me, okay, so this particular area of the business, what does it serve for you? And I'm just like, that I didn't fail. And that was just an immediate like, whoa. And I think for me, it is going that extra step and actually asking, like, do I want to create this because it is serving that sparkly idea that I had at 2 or 3 a.m.? Or is this actually going one step further, closer towards the business and life that I want to create? And the quote I've kind of come down to, or the motto or the mantra, is, am I making this decision based on the business and the person that I want to become, or the business or person that I am maintaining or band-aiding?
Or even, I know sometimes we can be prone to doing this, or I can at least, am I doing this to make sure that I'm not building the kind of business that I don't want? So like, am I moving away from what I don't want rather than am I moving towards what I do want?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I wish more people talked about things like this, right? Because it's like, people think that we, as business owners, people in business for more than 3-4 years, we always make the most perfect decision. Yeah, nah, it doesn't work that way. I make mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes last year, a lot of beautiful, silver linings, but also just like, you make mistakes, but it's like, it's not a bad thing. Like, you put yourself out there and you did the thing, and now you collect data and you learn from it.
Absolutely.
What else, Steph? What else is another?
Oh, that actually reminded me of a big one that wasn't on my little list that I brainstormed before, but it's to, how am I going to word this? To collect more experiences. Let's put it that way. So to take more action, to do more experimenting, to just play and see what happens rather than sitting there trying to make a decision when I don't have all of the facts that I need to make that decision. And the only way that I can get those facts is to take that action and then get the feedback on it. So that's been a huge one for me as well. Like I would often sit there and be like, oh, what is the right way to do this? And, that's like, even as my podcast's called Imperfect Action, I'm so big on taking imperfect action in some areas. But then in other areas of my life, I struggle to take that imperfect action. And for me, it's really been learning, like, how can I start to take that imperfect action in all areas of my life? How can I start to just be like, cool, it doesn't matter if this isn't the right thing to do, but let's just see what happens. And we'll figure out pretty quickly by taking action if it was the right way or the wrong way. And if it's the wrong way, great, then we can learn from it. We can course correct. Now we have a little bit more to work with than if we're just sitting there in our brains, spinning around, spinning those little wheels. Like, I don't know if I should do this. Is this the right thing? And then the answer never comes to us and we never make any progress.
You know what? I resonate with that so much. I actually feel like when we all started our businesses, we had so much fun and it was so experimental. I don't know about you, but I was like, like throw this over here, throw that over there, throw this over there. And it was like there was nothing at stake.
And now there was.
Yeah, there's nothing at stake. There was no expectation from anyone. It's almost as though you arrive in this brand new city in a country that no one knows about you at all, and you get to just play. But now it's like we've created, a brand, and there's so much more at stake, right? You say the wrong thing or you do the wrong thing, or it's like there's a typo. I made a typo today in one of our carousels, right? 100% human error, but it's just like you then may get pulled out. So it's like, do you feel like with, I don't know about you, Steph, but I feel like it's moments like this where I'm just like, ew, it makes me want to just create something completely brand new and have that zing and that feeling of play again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for me, it's like, where else in my life can I create that? Where can I have that in other areas of my life? But I love what you said, though, about there's so much more at stake, because I think a lot of people, when they're starting out in business, they don't appreciate it. I know I didn't appreciate that, like the ability to just throw spaghetti against the wall and see what happens. And so many people, especially what I see with people who are launching things for the first time, they might be launching their first course and they're like, oh, well, I want to wait until my audience is bigger so that I can have a big launch. And it's like, well, actually, no, you don't want to be doing your first launch in front of a massive audience, because there's so much more that can go wrong when you've got a big audience. It's kind of like learning how to drive on the freeway rather than in the little dead end road down the street, right? Or in a car park. There's a lot more at stake. You make a typo, 10,000 people see it instead of 100 people, right? Everything's at a much bigger scale. It's not just that you're making more sales, but it's also everything you're doing is at a bigger scale.
Yeah, 100%. I think that kind of, that reminded me of one of the things that was a really big takeaway for me too in 2023. I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I feel like you're so good at this, Steph. Like, again, in the realm of like boundaries, but it's like, I am that person that when I see a DM or when I see a voice note or when I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go in and reply. And it was so interesting. I recently had someone on LinkedIn. So I've been a little bit more active on LinkedIn lately. So much fun. I received a message from someone recently, which really had me feel quite wobbly, and it really tested me. And she said something along the lines of, I recently saw a post that you put out there about like human connection. And I love the element of connecting with my audience and my clients and students, etc. And I felt like it was a bit ironic. She said that I have been trying to connect with you for the last 2, 3, 4 months. And I've been emailing you. I've been DMing you, but no replies. And she was really honest. And to be honest, I am glad and I'm like grateful for her openness and transparency and radical candor. But it really wobbled me where I'm literally like, oh my goodness, I physically and mentally do not have the bandwidth to actually reply to each and every single email and message. And I did reply to her and I kind of shared the fact that, for me, it's actually quite important to protect my energy too, so that when I do show up, it is the 110% connection that I have with my friends, with family, or with clients and students. And I also am not the only person that monitors my DMs and emails anymore, So for me, that reminded me of the other thing for me that last year, which was not that I can't, not the whole peaches quote where it's just like, you could be the rapper's peach, but there's someone who doesn't like peaches. But it's just the fact that just because you don't reply to every single DM or message or voice note that you receive, this doesn't mean you don't care. It's the fact that you have to be really firm and strict with your own energy so that when you do show up, it is at that 110% to that person or to that community that you're in front of.
It's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one because, of course, you want to reply to everybody. Of course, you want to be able to help everybody out. You want to connect with everybody. The way my brain works, I really struggle to remember names and faces and details, which is
you remember
so
my
awkward.
Face, though.
I remember your face because I've seen it a few hundred times. But when it takes a moment. If I meet somebody in real life, for example, who they might have been through one of my programs and they might have been on some of the calls, it takes like a minute before my brain will kind of connect the dots and be like, oh, that's that person. This is their business. This is what we've talked about. I don't know if that's a me thing or if that happens to other people. But so a lot of the time when I'm trying to keep up with DMs, it's like that's really using up a lot of the brain power that I have for the names and the faces and the details. So I find that really exhausting. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's an ADHD thing. Maybe it's an introvert thing. I don't know what it is. But yeah, it's impossible to be able to give 100% to your clients and your students and your podcast listeners, as well as then every individual person in your audience. And it's only going to get harder as our businesses grow.
I was just going to ask you, how do you kind of see and approach that? Like, do you personally check your DMs? Do you just take yourself out completely? How do you kind of protect your energy?
Yeah, so we have a really good system in place where one of my team members is kind of like she kind of goes into DMs, inbox, everything and triages everything. And if there's something that I need to reply to, she'll allocate it to me. If there's, something that somebody else in the team needs to, she'll assign that to that person. And that way we're kind of all on top of it, but it's not perfect. Like sometimes it doesn't pull through messages. Sometimes things get missed because they're in the message request. And, it's never personal and it's never that we don't care. It's just that sometimes technology fails us and sometimes we genuinely do just miss messages.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I feel like I remember there was one time where we were in the middle of a launch and someone joined the program. So they joined and one of our zaps didn't do the zapping and they didn't receive the logins and all of that. And I also didn't check my DMs until a few hours later, but the person didn't receive the logins and this impacted her experience. And she was literally like, no, you know what? Like the fact that I didn't even receive this, I now want a refund, to the program. Yeah. And that's the thing. And exactly to your point, it's not perfect, but also it's one of those moments where I'm like, if you also do not understand that technology cannot always be perfect, then we don't want that energy either. We're just trying to do the best that we can with what we got. So
yeah. And I mean, that's the other element of, right? Like somebody wants that level of human connection, they also need to understand that there is a real human on the other side who does not have the capacity to be on top of all of the things, constantly checking DMs. Like I think treat your clients or treat the people that you buy from the way that you want your clients to treat you. Like if you would want one of your clients to be asking for a refund because they didn't get the email straight away, then yeah, be the person who asks for the refund because of that. But if you want your clients to be understanding, then you need to be understanding as well. I think it works that way too. You kind of attract what you put out there.
I agree. Yeah. What else would you say? Any final lessons, maybe even personally for you?
I mean, all of the lessons that I've shared apply both business and personal, right? Because, how you do one thing, how you do everything, all of that.
It all bleeds.
It all applies in all different areas. I think a really big one that actually came up for me towards the start of last year, when I was in Phoenix for James Wedmore's leadership event. And one of the first exercises that he had us do was identify like all of the areas in our businesses and our lives where we were out of integrity. So where we were saying one thing and then doing something different. And that for me was like this big, like every time that I say, I'm going to get up early and work out tomorrow morning and I don't, that's eroding a little bit of my self-trust. Every time I say to my team, I'm going to record that podcast episode today, and then I don't, they're losing a little bit of trust for me. So that's a huge thing. And it's very much a work in progress. I think it's one of the hardest things to do is to have that level of integrity of where everything you're saying is aligned with what you're doing. But yeah, that's a work in progress lesson.
That's tricky though, because it's like, how do you find the balance between saying that you'll do, so for example, I'm going to record a podcast today, but then you don't end up doing it because you're just not like, maybe it is just the physical, mental, you do not have the bandwidth today to do it. Like, how do you find that balance, right? Between saying you'll do something, but actually when you're awake that day, your body is screaming for you to rest.
I guess, okay, so maybe we'll look at it like a little bit more zoomed out. It's like saying that, I'm the kind of person who is really organized and records all my podcast episodes a week ahead, but then you end up actually recording them last minute all the time. So it's not like a one-off event.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I feel like if we were to know exactly if we could literally be so disciplined, and this goes back to me embracing the idea of, you need to have an element of discipline or consistency, whatever. Let's talk podcast. I love to have the idea that I can batch X amount of podcasts, and sometimes I can, but sometimes I'm literally recording it the day before. And there's totally nothing I would hope that my team, I don't know, would not be like, oh, wow, cannot trust her now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, this isn't, but I'm not really talking about discipline so much as the intent. So let's use another example then. Let's say that one of my biggest values is freedom. Probably my biggest value is freedom.
Yeah.
And then something that would be out of integrity with myself would be then if I were to go and launch a 12-month one-on-one client coaching program where I have to every week I'm talking to a couple of different clients and I have no space in my calendar, right? That's out of integrity with myself. And I'm going to know pretty quickly because that feels really like, ick. Even just saying that, I'm like, the thought of having a calendar full of calls, I hate that.
100%. How do you think moving into 2024 then you're going to really assess, and I guess this is coming full circle with this episode, right? Because we kind of kickstarted off too with me sharing how it's like sometimes we make these decisions and I approach decisions because it's like, I don't want to fail or I don't want to, like, how can we keep in sync with, the integrity or like one of your biggest values is freedom, but you've created an offer that actually takes you like literally a jail for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you going to do this year to kind of keep in alignment or to the best that you can.
And maybe you can keep me accountable to this, but doing like a little integrity audit where like, I don't know, once or twice a year, like all of the areas where I'm out of integrity.
That's not a bad idea.
It's actually not a bad idea.
It's actually not a bad idea. I think it's so important to share and I think usually when we approach decisions, and it's very easy to do when a lot of us are, you know, running a business by ourselves and we don't have a co-founder to kind of like keep ourselves accountable. But it's like, it's very easy to be like, yep, I will make that decision. It's like, you know, actually that's going to keep you away from being able to do all the things that you want to do. Go completely offline, you know?
Exactly.
I like it. I like it.
Do you have any last lessons to share?
Any last lessons? You know, I think if I was to wrap 2023 as a chapter in a book in one word, it would be alignment, the word alignment. So if I was to look at 2023 as like a chapter in a book, it would be alignment / realignment. I think it was a year where I took risks. It was a year where I, showed the heck up. I think there was a lot of areas that I was in full alignment. But I think I arrived at the end of the year where I was like, wow, very much somewhat similar to you, where you're like, that does not feel good.
Yeah.
But there was a part of me that was just like, you know what, maybe that's just you being scared. Or maybe that's just you, you know, doing something completely new. When really it was just not in alignment to the business and the life that I wanted to create. And I think I arrived towards the end of 2023 realizing that I've got to trust myself a lot more. Like, I feel like I had these like little flags being like, yo, you should look at this. And I was just like, nah, it's fine. It's good.
Avoiding it.
Yeah. Avoiding it, or even just being like, you know what, I am not going to listen to anyone. I'm just going to do it. And it's interesting because once I made that decision, which was a pretty big decision for our business, which I record a separate episode about it. But once I did it, so many people around me were like, you know what, saw it coming. Kind of, even you're like, saw it coming. I kind of knew that was going to happen. But you can't tell people to make certain decisions. They've got to arrive there themselves. So realignment is probably my word. And gosh, it's a really nice feeling. It's a really, really nice feeling. So creating space to actually explore whether or not you are in alignment, I think is important for us to actually arrive there.
I love that. All right. Well, we'll leave that episode there. I think we'll be back. Hit subscribe so you don't miss our next one, where we're going to do a little bit of a debrief on our launches and our businesses in 2023. I know, I'm excited.
It's going to be a good one.
And then our one after that will be 2024 predictions. So what we think is going to happen in 2024. So make sure you're subscribed, following our shows, and we'll see you there.